Shooters, you are now in your prep time. Your prep time has ended. With the magazine of 15 rounds making the addition one weapon. Is the line ready? The line is ready. Shooters firing 5 rounds in a time limit of 60 seconds. Stand by. Contact.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, polling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G. Back after a week break, we got a special guest. Before we get started, follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on all social media platforms. Any criticism is good criticism. You know what? Just even if you don't listen, just follow. Service members helping service members. You know what I'm saying? Let's get right into it. We got a special guest hailing in from Marine Corps Base, Hawaii, where I just PCS'd from. I'll let you introduce yourself and then say hello.
Hi, I'm Gunnery Sergeant Raza, first name Celeste. Been in the Marine Corps for 13 years and just recently moved here to Hawaii in October.
Sweet. Guns, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm going to call you Celeste because that's how that's what we've been communicating. I got you on for a specific reason, right? Just like I had our last week's guest. I had Burrell on separately, right? I was going to have you two on and talk about what we're going to talk about today, but times never matched and it was wild, right? Hawaii, East Coast, West Coast, it didn't work out. But it's a good thing I get you on today. Let's talk about it. The struggles of single parenting in the military, right? We talked about Burrell's piece being a male and the bias there. Let's talk about the female with the kids and how difficult it is for you to meet mission and operational commitments in terms of the organization, if at any. Right at this point, I'm sure you're thoroughly indoctrinated, so you know how it is already, right? Let's get right into it. How unique are the challenges for you? How are they unique for you in your short military career so far?
Well, luckily for my MOS, I don't go to the field. I'm aviation supply for starters.
Okay.
So, we don't have the field life. We don't constantly have to be leaving every other week. But the hours are, they're difficult. Sometimes we have to be there at 05:30. Daycare doesn't open until 05:30. The unique challenges are the time being there with the Marines and not being that person who utilizes. It sucks because there goes the bias, right? Utilizing your children as an excuse. Unfortunately, that's how it gets looked at, and even though that's not the case, that's probably the biggest challenge is not being looked like that Marine, and more specifically that female Marine who can't come to work, who can't be there because of their children.
Interesting. That's crazy. So a unique challenge to you, which is, I think it's the same challenge for everybody, is being a female single parent, right? It's you and your kids, right? Being a single parent and being part of the status quo, so to speak, right? That's a unique challenge for you, just as it is for everybody else that's a female in the military, I think, in general across the spectrum. Support systems, how important are they to you where you're at right now? Do you have any, or do you struggle maintaining those?
Luckily here, I have my best friend who's also a Marine. Her name is Rosine. She's here with me, but I wouldn't say I've had that support in every duty station. The last duty station I was in Virginia, Norfolk, and I was by myself again with my daughter at the time only. My son was just born 8 months ago, so now I have 2 kids, and my support system is my best friend. She's like a sister to me, but unfortunately, we don't get that family support, that constant, like I can just up and call anybody because at the end of the day, we're all still active duty, so it's kind of difficult to be like, hey, can you be here? Can you do this? Unless it's after hours as well. Yeah,
so your experience and my experience are completely different, right? I'll tell you what, as a senior leader, I have the privilege and the honor to have my spouse at home taking care of those kids, right? For you, financial burden, 1, you got to put them in CDC. 2, you got to figure out how to get them picked up when you're not able to pick them up from 5:30 and on, if that is the time that they give you, right? So those unique struggles to you are not unique to me. How can I, as a senior leader that doesn't have that same struggle as you, how can I bridge that gap? How do you bridge that gap with seniors and subordinates alike?
Because I had very negative leaders with my daughter. I had a mastermind who's retired who literally made me work up until the day I went into labor and did not care to let me go, even though when I had my appointment, I was already 4 centimeters dilated. He was like, okay, well, that you could be like that for hours, so come back to work.
Wow.
Yes. And then when I did have my daughter, it wasn't like, hey, how are you doing? It was more like, let me know when you're discharged so I can start your leave as soon as possible, your maternity leave. So for me, as a gunnery sergeant, now that I'm in the position, understanding those situations. With my son and my daughter, I had 2 completely different, moments within the Marine Corps career. As a young staff sergeant, I had those leaders that were negative. Be here, be at work. I mean, my gunnery sergeant, when I got back from maternity, didn't even know I had a daughter because that's how I had to manage to balance it. I was at work. I'd go get her. Nobody knew that I actually had a daughter when it came to my gunnies at the time.
Yeah.
In the section I worked. But as for me as a gunny now, it's understanding that Marine, understanding what it comes with. Because, it's not until you're actually a parent and a single mother at that as a female that you understand what other females go through. Because before that, it was like, hey, we're here to be Marines. This is what we do. Unfortunately, we get told as female Marines that the Marine Corps didn't issue us our children. So we have to figure it out. I heard that plenty of times coming into the Marine Corps. You have plenty of females who have to decide whether they want to have a career or build a family. And that is a very unfortunate thing to have to choose between because you shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
So me as a gunny now is understanding, allowing these, young male and females, because like you said, it can be biased. It's not just towards the female Marines because, males also want to build a family and balance it and figure out and still have a career. But understanding what it comes with. I work now at the Staff and SEAL Academy at Sergeant's Course. And just recently I had a sergeant ask me what it's like to be a female active duty mother. And I told her, until you're done with everything you want to do, like for yourself, not just for the Marine Corps, it'd be easier to just hold that off and leave. Because it's difficult.
Is that the opinion you wanted to give, or is that's a this is probably best for the organization type of answer?
It was more like it's probably best for you as an individual. I don't think I was giving an organization answer. I think I was giving her more like, what more do you want to do within your career? Because I don't want somebody to have regrets. I wasn't able to do this because I had children. Or I wasn't, like I told her, if you're done with everything you want to do, by all means. And if you're not, you can still do it. It's just not going to be as, easy as it could be if you didn't have children.
Right. That makes sense. Because he was talking to Burrell. And, I think as I was talking to other people after the session went on, there was I was still confused. Like, I don't know what those shoes are like for you and or for Godfrey, right? I don't know. I'm never going to know. And, thankfully, I don't want to know, to be honest, right? But I would say that in my short military career, I can see that there's a little bit of bias between women and men, right? Mm-hmm. I can use Burrell as an example because I know him personally. And I can understand nobody really cared. As a male, right? You had to figure it out. Even if it was single, broken household, right? I remember with his son, it was a big headache for him the entire time, trying to figure out how to get him here, how to get him there, blah, 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 right? And then the second thing was, in comparison to the female, I don't think it was like that because even my short experience, I think because the female was the child bearer, it's physically the only one, no other way, right? They would do that, and we would kind of not cater, but understand that that's who it is, that's who it was. So we had to accommodate. Do you ever feel that you're accommodated more and you're put on a pedestal more? It doesn't sound like it, but have you ever had those duty stations where like I'm up here because of it? Do I get a little more favoritism? Is that a thing? Do you think?
I don't think it's considered favoritism. I think unfortunately we get more understanding. But like you said, the unfortunate bias with that is if the significant other, whoever you're with, does have, is the father, it still puts a burden on the mother, whether it's the father or not, because now the mother is still by herself, even though she doesn't have to be, right? It wasn't up until recent that the Marine Corps decided to change those guidelines for the males if they are active duty, and now they get the 12 weeks, right? Doesn't mean they have to utilize it as a whole, but like now they have the opportunity to be there for their significant other, for their spouse, for whoever it is, because it's not just one person, like you said, just because I had the child. Shouldn't mean that I'm the only one that gets to be lucky to stay home, right? Because a lot of people misconstrue what it's like to be on maternity leave, or what it's like, oh, you get to just have 3 months off, and it's a big process that comes with it.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I remember not being there for my oldest two, and then getting an opportunity to be there for my third youngest. But this one, the fourth one that I have, I got to be there, right?
Right.
So I get to experience a little different things than you, right? But I know the maternity for the women is like, it's not really a break. You got to still get up. You still got to nurture the child and breastfeed or, formula feed, whatever it is that we do. And it's hard work for both. It's definitely a tag team type of effort. How do you manage the emotional toll and balancing military service and single parenthood? I know that right now you're at the academy, right? I think that's where you're at, right? How do you balance operational tempos with the academy and then single parenting?
Well, I'm like, again, I got fortunate here, and I think it goes back to what you were just saying, that the seniority, right, of being in the Marine Corps and being able to kind of, in a sense, have a say where you want to go and what you want to do. I mean, I didn't know the tempo was going to be as flexible as it is here. I mean, we're nothing but senior leaders. We're all gunnies here, so we all kind of understand. We all have families and children. So based on the hours, it's as simple as, hey, today I have an appointment. Somebody else can cover my class for the beginning, or whatever it may be. We're actually understood here. And I feel like that's a process that has changed throughout the Marine Corps, because I feel like a lot of the toxic leaders that were once in that old school mindset are kind of getting out. And those that, like us now, that are now the staff NCOs that went through what we didn't enjoy or like, are trying to change that for the institution and for the Marines, right? So I feel like for me, the emotional stress is able to be taken off here. However, in the beginning, it was difficult. You feel a lot of guilt, because as much as you have the great resources like the CDC or the YMCAs on base and whatnot, you feel like they're the ones raising your children rather than you, because they spend so much time there.
Interesting.
So it's a guilt-conscious thing when you have children and you constantly leave them in the CDC.
Hell yeah, I can agree, because I know me and my wife are pretty old school in terms of we are going to raise our kids, nobody else. And I'm assuming you're Hispanic. I think you have the same ideals, right, in terms of raising your kids. And unfortunately, you don't get that opportunity. So, I applaud you for being in as long as you have been with being a single parent, right? I don't know how long you've been that way, but I know there's some struggles that come with it, big struggles that I'm never going to experience. And I think this is us bridging the gap in terms of senior leaders, and you is like, look, this is what we encounter. And it's awesome that to say you're in Hawaii at the academy and it's big boy, big girl rules. Adults. We're all adults. We can all help each other out. It's not a big deal. And I think you're right. I think a lot of the old heads, because they only got 7 days, they're a little salty, right? That could be something. It could be said that they don't understand because they never went through it, and I think that's the majority of the issue. Is they're never going to go through it. And Burrell said, I know we're going to get to the next question too, because the next question is a good one. Burrell said, ask them to send their spouse away for 30 days and then send them to the CDC, pick them up, and see if they can do it like you can or Burrell does, and then maybe they can understand. Right? When they walk a mile in your shoes, then maybe they can speak on it intelligently, because right now I don't think we can. I mean, again, I think I'm pretty reasonable in terms of children and coming to the workspace and all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm with you in terms of they got to go. They don't understand. There's no sympathy. There's no grace for sure to your situation. How childcare? You have to PCS. How difficult it is for you to find childcare every duty station you go to?
I feel like as a parent, that's the biggest stressor as you go into a duty station, right? Like as soon as you find orders and you know that they're going to post, you're going into military childcare. You're trying to save your spot. I mean, my son, I put him here when I found out I was pregnant and I got extended out. And luckily I was able to have a spot here. During COVID with my daughter, because she was still in the CDC. She's 6 years old now, so she's in first grade. But during COVID, it was extremely difficult. Nobody was trying to take more kids in. During COVID, when we were being, quarantined, the kids, I was spending so much time at home, 14 days back to back almost. So it's like, even though the resources are there, it's very difficult. It's one of like the priorities. Besides finding a home, that's the number one priority when you're PCSing, is ensuring that you put your kid on the wait list because of how long it takes to get them in.
Are you,
And if not,
are you a priority? Are you a priority in terms of single parent?
Yes. We're considered priority one because I'm a single active duty parent. Yes.
Well, that's good.
Like the lucky part of it, in a sense.
Financially, you touched on it a little bit earlier. Financially, how much of a burden is it on you and your family financially? Every CDC, I don't know if it's the same cost everywhere you go. What is it that you encounter every single time you PCS in terms of finances?
Financially, it's extremely difficult because it changes. In California, just to be, completely transparent with you, I was paying close to $700 monthly for my daughter. Luckily, like her dad is in the picture, so if we have a great co-parenting, so he did help with half of that. With my son, it's a completely different story. His dad is not involved, period. Didn't want to be. So with him, it changes here because it's kind of almost close to California prices. Hawaii is a very expensive state.
Yeah.
So it's actually based almost on the cost of living with some type of discount. So financially, I do have to find changes to, my budget, adjust it differently based on where I'm at. I'm fortunate enough to have got a spot on base. As much as people complain, BH gets taken away, it's too expensive out here, wouldn't make no difference. And I'm like at a walking distance from the CDC, luckily. So there's like a good and bad balance to it, but it's expensive? Very. It is very expensive. Luckily, they provide certain meals and all, but the cost is expensive. Certain CDCs are different. Here, they don't allow you to take vacation breaks. There's certain CDCs, you give a 2-week notice, they credit you, right, for the time that your child is not there. For whatever reason, it's different here in Hawaii. They don't credit you here. It's you want your spot, you have to continue paying, unfortunately.
You don't want to say that too loud because the base commander might hear you and change policy. So you're saying that if you pull them out for 2 weeks for summer break and you're going on vacation, you still got to pay for the 2 weeks to hold your spot. I do remember that being a thing in Hawaii. That's crazy.
Yes.
That's crazy. How do you handle? You touched on it earlier too. Where we're jumping around a lot of the questions. Is I know what you're doing. How do you navigate? How do you navigate the guilt and the pressure? You said you weren't deployed, but you talked about you felt bad because you were a single parent and you were getting that. I don't know if that bias, if that's the right word or not, but how do you navigate those pressures in terms of duty, in terms of having a class? It wasn't always like this as for us senior folks, right? It wasn't always comfortable. How do you navigate those pressures as you built up in the ranks and moving every time?
Well, with my daughter, I was deployed. With her, I did deploy. We don't do the field thing, but I was deployed for 7 months. I was in Kuwait with her. And this is another part that, I'm sure a lot of women in the military don't speak about is the postpartum depression that comes with after having children, right? Mm-hmm. And having to come back 3 months later, 4 months later, and you have to be okay. You are back on duty. You're back full duty, active duty. And the tempo is so fast that you don't pay attention to any of that. At the time, I had a great master sergeant who retired as well with my daughter when it came to deployment. That one, the other one left. This new one came in. And he saw that there was something different that I didn't understand. And the deployment was the answer for me to mentally get myself together and come back and learn to appreciate all these changes that were coming with me, right? Because I'm learning to balance me as a new mom, going back to work, being there for the Marines, being there for, senior leaders, the mission, and still trying to be there for my daughter. So finding that balance to all of that, it's difficult. I can tell you, if I'm being, again, transparent with you, you can't do it alone. It's not something you can do alone. I've had to speak, to the resources that are on base for therapy, for counseling, to understand, is it me? Am I doing it right? Am I doing enough? And that's the biggest question is, am I doing enough? Am I giving my children enough time, combining them with the CDC and being with somebody else, and then coming home after a long day at work?
Mm-hmm. Taking one hat, putting on another hat. It's especially for a single parent. I can understand. I know a young Marine that was in Hawaii with us, and she had to send her daughter home because she didn't have the help. And there are some other circumstances with it, but I think she had to send her daughter home because it wasn't enough support. She couldn't figure out the pricing. She couldn't figure out the babysitting for duty. She couldn't figure it out. And again, she didn't have the support you might have there with your friend, right? Your sister, you call her. She didn't have that. And so now she's by herself. Her daughter's with her mother. Again, there's some pros and cons to everything, right? But I can understand maybe her not being in the same shoes in terms of leadership. I don't think she had the help that you have now. So I would say that if anybody's listening, be supportive, because regardless of male or female, I think it comes with struggles in itself, because I'm not going to struggle like the way you are in terms of your family, because it sounds like you want to build, you want to raise, but you can't, and there's no other way around it.
You got to find balance. Like you said, family is involved, but financially, again, that becomes another burden, right? Like having to fly parents out or having to fly your kid there. That becomes part of another financial burden on top of still paying for childcare, even though, because you don't want to lose your spot, right? So even if you can't be there, even if you're not here, it's something that you have to roll the dice and figure out. I mean, I got here and I had to be gone for 25 days and I had to fly my mom in here, even though my friend is here, just because, again, she's also active duty and I needed to have somebody that was always going to be available here. So it's a lot of coordination.
Absolutely, man. You're not a man, but absolutely. How do you, it's like a twofold question, right? I touched on it with Godfrey a little bit last week. What advice can you give single parents right now, male or female, that are going through the same circumstance you are or have been? What can you provide them? Give them one tool for the tool bag here. Like, hey, this is a priority every time you PCS. I know that a CDC is a must, right? But while you're there, in terms of leadership and superiors and subordinates alike, what can you provide them in terms of tool? One thing.
To find that one leader they can trust and talk to, honestly. Like, you have to be able to speak up. I know let go of the ego and let go of your pride, especially because we're Marines, right? So understanding that if you're going to need help, it's okay to ask for it and figure other avenues, because that's the biggest part. In general, being able to ask for that help that most of us don't want to, right? Because we all want to be super moms. We all want to say we got it, we can handle it. And I think that's the biggest misconception, is that we don't know how to let go of the ego and pride to be able to be like, hey, Gunnery Sergeant, hey, Sergeant, whoever it may be, right? Because any rank, I need you to understand this is what my household looks like. I would like to see if we can be understood, if we can figure something out. I'm not trying to get out of duty or anything. I just need you to work with me, whether it's I take weekend duty because I can have somebody help me take care of the kid, or it's a give and take. So understanding how to speak to leadership and not be scared to talk to your leadership, honestly.
That's good.
A lot of people don't want to air out their laundry, and I get that. But a leader, I can't help you as your gunnery sergeant if I don't know. That's
good. Communication. He touched on it. He touched on it a little bit last week. He talked. Communication is a big thing, right? In terms of being a single parent, she's got to talk to Macy, the mother of his son, right? Communication was big for them. Communication should be the same thing for his Marines and or his superiors that are trying to help him out and hook him up, right? You kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of leaders, right? Tell the leadership how they can better support single parents. Just be flat out and honest. Like, this is what you need to do because you're not doing it.
Stop being selfish, honestly. I think leaders get to a position where they feel like they made it, right? So they don't want to do the work. They don't want to sit here and do it. And they're complaining about the mission or whatever not getting done. Stop being selfish. Stop being lazy. Just because Lance Corporal, whomever underneath you couldn't do it, doesn't mean you don't know how to do the job. You can still do that. You've been in the Marine Corps long enough, and you're in that position for a reason. You can help out that Marine, even if it means having to, for that day, hey, I'm the one breaking down boxes or doing something. You're still a Marine. You're getting paid on the 1st and the 15th. You're not just there to look at people. If your Marines need help, that's what you're there for. You're there to be that person, those mentorship, those guidance. A lot of leadership don't want to.
That's good. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They're above it now, right? They made it.
Right.
They can retire at a certain rank, right? They made it. That's good. That's good to be on. If you're listening, stop being selfish. Be selfless for your Marines, right? Because that's who you serve. You're a servant, a senior servant.
Exactly.
That's what's in the rank. That's what's in the name. If you're not doing it, maybe you should really consider getting out. But if you are if the shoe fits, wear it and run 1,000 miles with it. Because right now we have some selfish leaders, and I would say at times for me too, I'm a little selfish. I'm not gonna lie to you, but for the good of the organization, you know what I'm saying? Selfish. Anyways, but that's good. That's good advice. If you're listening, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pit Talk, Pulling Pits and the Pins with your host, Gunny G. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast. Special guest hailing from Hawaii, Gunnery Sergeant Celeste Raza. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. One more question. I know you're busy. It's late out there and it's late out here. One tool for Marines that are facing adversity right now, not that are single parents, anything like that, but Marines and service members that are facing adversity right now, facing toxic leadership right now, how do they build resilience in that situation right now? Give them that tool.
Oof. Look within you. It's not necessarily your fault, but look within you. Like, if you want to, you're going to overcome it. And if it means, taking that extra mile, extra step, that leadership is not going to always be your only leadership. That's one thing I had to remember every time I would do station. Everybody PCSs at one point, and at some point there's going to be a leader that comes in and cares. Not every leader is the same as the one you had. So if you're dealing with toxic leadership right now, don't be that when you're in that position. Just because it happened to you doesn't mean you need to continue that cycle. Wait for somebody that cares, and you're going to see the difference in every leadership that actually cares.
Got to grind it out.
Yeah.
Life is a long distance run. It just doesn't stop after 3 years. You know what I mean? That's good advice. Right. That's good advice. If you're listening, stay the course. Stay the course. Not everybody's the same. Not every gunny's the same. Not every master sergeant's the same. First sergeant, major. And I can tell you right now, in my short Marine Corps career, I've experienced a lot of first sergeants and sergeant majors that are different. Night and day. One, your butthole's tight when you're going into that office, and the other one, it's like, hey, Israel, I got it. You know what I mean? Calm down. Like, why are you so stiff? Well, I'm so used to a certain product, right? I was used to a certain image or type of conversation that I'm not used to this. What you're giving me, sympathy, grace, empathy type of situation, conversation. So, I can relate to that a lot. Again. Guns, thank you for taking the time to talk about single parenting and being transparent with your situation, right? I know it hasn't been easy. I know it's been pretty difficult, I think, the entire time for you, but you have built resilience, and it's good that, first, that you have done that, and second, that you're offering your experience for others to build resilience as well. So thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Where can they reach you at? Let's just say somebody wants to talk about more about single parenting, being a mother in the military. Where can they reach you at? Social media handles, if not email, right? Where can they touch base with you?
They can reach me on Instagram if they want. It's CC_Raza. If anybody wants to reach me as an email, it's razacc@gmail.com if they want to. I mean, hasn't been easy. And, make sure that village matters. But that village has to actually genuinely care about their kids. So don't just let anybody be around your children. That's the biggest part.
Ooh, that's
kids
good.
Come first. So
kids
that
come
village
first.
matters, but they actually have to genuinely care about your kids. And I've been fortunate enough to have a good village around me.
That's good. To keep your circle close and small, because not everybody's going to care like you. Absolutely. I agree. Even me being married with 4 kids, right, with my wife, that circle is small, because nobody's going to care like your kids like you do, right, first. And 2, that's just it. Like, there's nothing else to it, right? So I definitely agree with you. Appreciate taking the time, sharing your wisdom, sharing your experience, sharing your story. If you need anything from me, let me know. If I can do anything from out here from Washington, let me know. But thanks again. And now I have you for a tool in the toolbox in terms of single parenting, and if other Marines are going through the same thing, I know who I can send them to, even if I don't have those answers. So I appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts and on all social media platforms. Gunny Raza, thank you again. And we out.
Pit Talk is a podcast featuring active service members who discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.